Alright, you modern humans, to prepare for our next speech, Methods of Barbarism, in our last video, we learned how the United Kingdom came to control Cape Colony and how they pushed the Boers further inland to establish the Transvaal Republic, also known as the South African Republic, and the Orange Free State. In this video, we'll dive into the First and Second Boer Wars. This is Speaking Through the Ages, where we bring back the dead in an attempt to bring out the values, beliefs, and internal struggles of those humans that came before. We give context to and deliver historical speeches that motivated people to kill, riot, make salt, and sign papers. I'm Joseph Delisle, your novice history fan. To join us, subscribe and click the bell for notifications. We've learned in an earlier video that the British acquired control of Cape Colony shortly after the start of the Napoleonic Wars, which was a series of major conflicts pitting the French Empire against the fluctuating European powers. These conflicts were usually financed and led by the United Kingdom. Ultimately, in 1815, the French would lose these wars, and that positioned the British Empire to emerge as the major naval power of the 1800s. With their guns, germs, and steel, the British Empire would grow to the largest in history. By 1913, it held sway over 23% of the world's population, and by 1920, it covered almost a quarter of the Earth's total landmass. That's kind of crazy, considering its own landmass is about the size of the state of Michigan. We also learned that the Orange Free State and the Transvaal Republic were recognized by the British government as sovereign states in 1852 and 1853, respectively. This was a temporary arrangement at best. It would only take about 14 years before those bloody Brits would annex Transvaal. Initially, it was peaceful, or at least not violent. But make no mistake, this pissed the Boer population off, and it did not take long before they rebelled. A full-blown war would start on November 11, 1880, when 100 commando men marched and fired shots on a British bailiff who wrongfully obtained a farmer's wagon because the farmer refused to pay inflated British taxes. The Transvaal Republic allied with the Orange Free State and had moral support from Cape Colony. The British were overconfident, but more importantly, not experienced with guerrilla tactics. The Boers, dressed as civilians, they knew the terrain better and attacked only when they had the advantage. It only took them 4 main battles to secure a British defeat in March 1881. This would not sit well with the British. Their pride was hurt and they didn't expand the empire. Needless to say, relations between the Boers and the Brits remained uneasy. Why these two sovereign states? Well, it's always money. In 1866, diamonds were discovered on the border of the states. Then, in 1886, gold was discovered in Transvaal, making it the richest nation in South Africa. However, they did not have the manpower nor the infrastructure to capitalize on the resources by themselves. So, a whole bunch of foreigners, mainly English-speaking men from Britain, immigrated to help out and become rich. This caused a slight problem. Now you had those anti-establishment, fuck the Brit Boers with those gentry, prideful, British loyalist boys. The Boers knew if they granted foreigners full voting rights and treated them as equals, they would lose the ethnic Boer control. However, the failure to grant full voting rights and the second-class citizen treatment of the immigrants resulted in a failed uprising against the Boers in 1895. Shortly afterwards, the British started positioning troops around the borders. And the tension between the Brits and Boers continued to escalate as negotiations over the British immigrant rights, control of the gold mines, and the desired British Federation continually failed. Finally, in September 1899, the British Colonial Secretary, Joseph Chamberlain, who we'll be covering in a different speech later in the series, demanded full rights and representation for the immigrants in Transvaal. Paul Kruger, the president of Transvaal, responded with an ultimatum. He requested that all British troops be removed from the borders of the Orange Free State and Transvaal. A failure to do so would result in a declaration of war. The British rejected these terms, and war ensued. Initially for the Boers, the Second War looked promising with a number of Boer victories. They besieged the British garrisons of Mafeking, Ladysmith, and Kimberley. Then they won a series of tactical victories at Stormberg, Magersfontein, Colenso, and Spion Kop. However, this time, the British Empire would not accept defeat. There's too much man pride, money, and British rights at stake. They doubled down and sent 2 more army divisions to relieve the sieges. This meant by January 1900, South Africa held the largest force Britain had ever sent overseas, about 180,000 men with more reinforcements being requested. This many men would collapse the sieges the Boers had, and the Brits would regain control of Natal and Cape Colony. Next, they would invade Transvaal and capture its capital. The Boers, refusing to give up, conducted a rugged guerrilla war. Dressed as civilians, they would attack British troop columns, telegraph sites, railways, and storage units. In response, the British generals thought it necessary to turn dark. They adopted a scorched earth policy, a policy aimed to destroy any resources and assets the Boers could use: weapons, vehicles, food stores, agriculture, water sources, and even their civilian coverage. They would move all civilians into concentration camps where over 26,000 women and children died from disease and malnutrition. It would take a British woman, feminist, and pacifist to ignite the pro-Boer camp and almost split the British Liberal Party of the time. During the early stages of the war, the pro-Boer camp was small, but a radical early supporter of the Boers and opponent of imperialism and militarism in general was the Liberal MP Leonard Courtney. He appointed a courageous female, Emily Hobhouse, as secretary to an anti-war organization called the South African Conciliation Committees. Leonard was the president, but it was Emily who went to South Africa and persuaded authorities to let her deliver aid to the concentration camps. And it was Emily who saw firsthand the brutality of the camps. She saw the death of, on average, 50 kids a day. Upon her return to England, she met with Sir Henry Campbell Bannerman just a few hours before he gave his iconic speech, Methods of Barbarism, in June 1901. He would campaign his message of abhorrence and give the speech again in his home district, Stirling, Scotland, October 26, 1901. A speech we'll cover soon. Thanks for exploring the ages with us. In our next video, we'll give a short bio of Sir Henry Campbell Bannerman, and then we'll deliver, I promise we'll deliver, the next speech. Throughout Speaking Through the Ages, we'll encounter different countries, cultures, and histories. We'll cover more detail and reveal little by little as each speech requires. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Or leave comments to correct any errors, exaggerations, or perfunctory explanations this novice history fan gets wrong. See you next time, where the dead teach.